Soulmate with Brian. Hi. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
It's amazing to have you on our show here today.
Thank you.
Soulmate with Brian. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience out there?
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Uri. I can tell you about where I grew up. I grew up a little bit of my life in New Zealand and a bit of my life in Australia, and now I'm back in Korea, but I was born and raised here for some time too. So I'm a Korean.
Wow. Nice. So we call you Koul. In
Yeah.
English is Uriko?
Uri. Yeah, Uriko.
Uriko?
Yeah.
What does Uriko mean?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think it's a Korean word, we, us.
Right.
Right?
But it's not, right?
It's not. It's actually Chinese letter.
Really?
So U means to help, and 리, 이로울리, to help wisely. So
wow.
I guess my parents wanted me to be a good helper.
Yeah.
And so it means that, but I love the meaning of us as well.
We as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
what a
yeah,
great
yeah.
name.
Thank you.
Better than Brian.
Thank you, my parents.
Yeah, thank your parents. I named myself Brian.
Well, wait,
Yeah.
you named yourself?
Yeah, my Korean name was Youngjun,
Oh,
and I
okay.
went to America,
Yeah.
and everyone had English names. So after school, I told my mom, "엄마, I'm Brian."
Right.
And she said, "Okay."
Okay, Brian.
So I named myself. But
Right.
yeah, Uri has such a great meaning, you know, being a wise helper. What?
Yeah, wise helper.
Wow.
But I definitely had so many English names, and then I ended up just going to, why do I have to create English name? I can just be Uri. So I have many versions of people calling me Wuri, Yuri, Ori, like all kinds
Oreo?
of names.
No, no.
Close, not that one yet, but yeah, I'm
Wow.
kind of like letting them go. Yeah, that's me, whatever.
That's good for you, though. I mean, like you said, you probably try different names to maybe adapt to the culture in New Zealand or Australia.
Right, right.
But you were proud of your Korean name.
Yeah.
At a young age, right?
Yeah, it actually took somebody from overseas telling me that, because I think we as Koreans, we want to be respectful, and we go overseas and we're like, okay, we want to make it easy for you. But then somebody was like, why do you need an English name? Like, your name's pretty good.
You should be proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what, that's all right. Like, let's do that, Brian.
Why did no one tell What happened to my life?
Yeah, no worries.
Well,
no.
why not me?
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's still your identity.
I could have been Youngjun. Soulmate with Youngjun.
Okay, I can call you Youngjun from now on if you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, we want to know a little bit more about, how you, grew up, right? So you were born in Korea?
Yes.
And then when did you go to New Zealand and overseas?
So when I was 9 years old.
9 years old, okay.
Yeah, I was 9. I have a little brother who is taller than me now. He was 7. Yeah. And my parents were in their mid-30s when they felt like God was calling them to be part of a missionary training course.
Oh, wow.
So that's why, like, they uprooted themselves from everything that was going on here, and we moved to New Zealand. Yeah.
So you're a missionary's kid.
You could say that. Yep, I'm an MK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people in our audience, they're MKs,
Yeah.
So what are the positives and negatives
Yeah.
about being an MK,
Right.
especially overseas? Like, what did you experience?
I think I got to see the positive things the older I got. But the whole process of growing up as an MK didn't really look like it was the best thing, because we were uprooted from when we grew up. Meant that we had to get uncomfortable and learn a new language and be okay with trying to fit into this new culture.
Yeah.
And growing up in New Zealand, I got to be exposed to more cultures, thankfully, and got to learn the language. And like the crazy part, the best thing about right now is that I get to listen to sermons in English. I get to listen to English songs and understand them.
Yeah, it's a great blessing.
Yeah, and also like be the bridge and be in the gap where we could kind of combine different cultures together.
Right.
But that's like the biggest advantage. But growing up, like trying to figure out where you fit in probably was the hardest. And I know that's like a similar thing for so many MKs or PKs that I've seen. So yeah, uncomfortable is something that you want to do in your life, but that means like something about you will change forever, and you have to be okay with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it must have been hard for you, not just going overseas, like you said, in a new culture.
Yeah.
I mean, you explained that explained it so well. How positive it was. But I mean, it must have been very difficult, and especially being a daughter of missionaries who serves others and really sacrifice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And did you have any, maybe like, I'm sure you didn't, but
Yeah.
some bitterness or like sadness, like why is my family like this, serving others and sacrificing?
Yeah.
Because I hear from a lot of MKs as well, And how was it for you?
Yeah. Actually, as you're saying this to me, it makes me think about my parents, because it must have been very much more difficult for them, because when we were brought up in a different country, we were kids, meaning that we were faster in learning the language and adapting the cultures. But for them, they've lived most of their lives in a culture, meaning it's harder for them to change, right? So that makes me think like, wow, it must be so hard for them. But as for me, I definitely went through identity crisis of how come my parents had to kind of live a different lifestyle, and then now, like our entire lives, which is still opening up, we had to kind of create this place where we fit it in. But like good things happened when I started going to international schools and different churches, university, and seeing other kids like me also struggling through that, and meeting them, hearing their stories, and even learning the terms like third cultured kid, made me realize, wow, I'm not alone, but there are others like that. But then also, as I'm learning more about God and His culture, I'm so glad that they went for the adventure, because I think at the end of the day, we all gotta make adventures if we want to continue serving God.
Yeah.
And this was my part of the adventure, and God was using every little circumstances to kind of create that good character and finding identity in Him. Because at the end of the day, it's not about identity of being a Korean or a New Zealander or thing, but like basically like, are you a kingdom kid? Are you God's child? That's the most important thing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So when did you realize that you were a kingdom kid, or I guess a child of God?
Yeah.
When was your first, I guess, experience,
Right.
that you realized, oh, God is amazing, God is real?
Yeah. I realized that when I went to Bible college back in Australia, because in Bible college, there were all these students from 60 different nations. So then that means all of them were colliding with their own identity. Like, this is my culture, this is Latino culture, Asian culture, American culture. But then within this little bubble that we had, it did not really matter what culture you had, but it was about, okay, we're all different, but which culture are we going to focus on, was what I learned. And so I think that's when I realized, oh, identity really matters. Knowing where you come from and knowing where you're going, which for all of us, hopefully it was the kingdom culture.
Yeah.
That's when I realized.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you grew up in New Zealand, and then when did you say you went to Korea or Australia first?
I might have to do the timeline. Okay.
Yeah, please share a little bit about your
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've been like all over, kind of, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I was 9 when we first went to New Zealand. I was 13 when we got back to Korea.
Korea, okay.
I was 15 when I went back to New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
And then I was 18 when I got back to Korea.
Okay, wow.
And then lastly, 20 was when I went to Australia. And then around about 24, I came back. And
Korea.
ever since 24, 25.
And now you're 25 years old, right?
That's right.
It's 1 year.
That's right.
So you just mentioned Bible college, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Australia, and how you got there,
Yeah.
and how you were transformed through that experience. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I thought Bible college was for bored Christian kids who didn't really know what to do with their life. Because I always wanted to be somewhere in the arts or in the music school. But at the back of my mind growing up, I always imagined like, what would giving my whole year, like we call it gap year after school,
Okay.
either a gap year or 3 years, like years, what does giving God this time look like? And as I was searching, it felt like I felt like my season in Korea was done. And so the last time I moved away from Korea, I felt like, okay, this is gonna be start of my new 이민 생활 somewhere outside of Korea. And I'm gonna start getting a job and start looking for free schools where they could either train me or where I could save up for like either music school or art school. But then a lot of doors kept shutting on me. Different doors, different relationships didn't work out. And I was at this place in 2014. God, like I just left Korea thinking that this season was done because like I want something more. I know that there's something more that you've got for me. But then I'm in New Zealand waiting to go anywhere, but how come are you closing all these doors on me? What do I do? And that's the time where God just led me to that scripture of like Moses going to see the burning bush. And he said, take off your shoes, what's in your hand? And he just pointed that out in my hand. What is in your hand? I've put something there. And I realized, oh, it was like puzzle pieces all clicking together. Oh, my life's work of what's in my hand has all been like kind of connected from a young age. And that one word, worship, popped up in my head.
Wow.
And I felt like I was trying to look for my identity, my life's path through all these majors or studies that you could do, thinking that which one do I pick to be established as a young person? But God was just very simple. Just worship me. And that time I only knew very little meaning of what worship meant, but it felt like he was about to teach me.
Thank you everyone for supporting our channel. We ask that if you haven't yet, please subscribe and click the bell button down below, notification. We thank you for your support. God bless you, and we'll continue to provide great programming for you. God bless.